If you've ever replayed something embarrassing from 3 years ago at 11 p.m., and I mean really replayed it, full scene, every cringe detail exactly how it happened. Your brain wasn't broken. It wasn't weak. It wasn't punishing you. It was doing exactly what it was built to do. That's the part nobody tells you. Not just once. The thought comes in, you push it out. It comes back louder. Then a different memory shows up, uninvited. Something from a conversation 2 years ago. Something you said in a room you barely remember. Then another. Then you check your phone, and it's been 43 minutes and you have no idea where that time went. Sound familiar? If that's you, and it is, it's almost everyone, you are not weak. You're not more anxious than other people by accident. You haven't failed at thinking. Something specific is happening inside your brain right now. A real, studied, named mechanism. And when you understand it, it stops feeling like a character flaw and starts feeling like a circuit diagram. That's where we're going. This is called rumination, and it is one of the most well-studied mental loops in all of neuroscience. Not a character flaw, not a personality type. A mechanism with a name, a location in the brain, a documented cause, and a documented effect. Once you see the mechanism, you stop asking, why can't I just stop? You start asking something completely different. Here's how it works. People who ruminate don't think more than other people. That's the thing everyone gets wrong. It's not volume. They think in loops. The same thought, processed, not resolved, returned, processed again, not resolved again. The thought circles back not because you're bad at thinking, but because of what didn't happen at the end of the last pass. That distinction changes everything about how you approach this. Rumination lives in the default mode network. That's the part of your brain that activates when nothing else is demanding your attention. No task, no conversation, no input pulling your focus. The DMN is the brain's resting state. It's idle mode. But here's what matters. Your default mode network is not actually resting. It is running background processes. And for most people, those processes involve you, your past, your relationships, your unfinished business. When nothing is happening, your brain defaults to you, and then it starts sorting through everything you haven't quite resolved. Think of the DMN as your brain in idle. No task, no input, no demands. Most people's idle is quiet, a kind of soft, wandering neutral. Yours starts running old footage. Not just any footage, footage that didn't have an ending. A conversation that trailed off. A moment where you said the wrong thing and nobody said anything after. A decision you made that you're still not sure about. The brain isn't randomly picking memories. It's pulling up files that never got marked as closed. There's a specific reason those ones keep loading. We'll get there. Here's how the circuit actually runs. A thought activates. Something triggers the memory. Some idle moment opens the door. The DMN amplifies it, running the full scene, the full emotional weight, every detail intact and present. Then comes the critical moment. The brain looks for resolution, for a signal that says, case closed, file this, move on, and it doesn't find one. So the thought doesn't get archived. It returns, louder than before, carrying the full emotional charge of every previous loop that also failed to resolve. That's the circuit. Thought, amplify, no resolution, return. Over and over. Researchers at Yale University spent 2 decades, over 20 years, studying exactly what separates people who overthink from people who don't. Not a short study, not a small sample, a sustained, longitudinal body of work looking at how the ruminative brain spends its time versus a non-ruminative brain. What they found wasn't what most people would guess. It wasn't that ruminators are smarter, or more sensitive, or more anxious in general. The difference was almost entirely about where in time the brain's attention tended to live. And the gap between the two groups was enormous. Here's the finding. Ruminators spend up to 73% of their mental downtime on past-focused thought. Replaying events, revisiting decisions, running old scenes, 73%. Non-ruminators, under 20%. That's the same brain, the same idle time, the same DMN running, and the content is completely different. Not more thinking, different thinking. One brain is spending that downtime replaying already resolved or already accepted moments. The other is circling files it never managed to close. That's what the data shows. That's what 20 years of research points to. The problem isn't how much you think, it's what your brain does when it has nothing to do. That's not more thinking, that's different thinking. The ruminator's brain has learned, through repetition, through habit, through thousands of reinforced cycles, to treat the past as a problem that's still actively waiting to be solved. Not filed, not archived, still open, still pending resolution. The brain of a non-ruminator treats those same past events as completed records, done, stored, accessible if needed, but not actively queued. The ruminator's brain treats them as tasks on a list that never gets shorter. Every time you revisit something without resolving it, it goes back on the queue. Active, waiting. Here's what that means in practice, and this is the part that matters most. Every single time you revisit a thought without resolving it, every time the loop runs, every time you go back into that scene, every time you replay that conversation, you are doing something to your brain. You are training it. You are teaching the ruminative circuit to run that loop more efficiently, more automatically, with less prompting than before. Revisitation without resolution is not neutral. It is active conditioning. You are practicing the loop with every pass. This is neuroplasticity working against you. The same principle that lets a musician develop muscle memory, the same principle that builds skills through repetition, applied to a loop you never chose to practice. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The more times the ruminative circuit fires, the more efficiently it fires next time. Rumination literally strengthens the rumination pathway. You are not just experiencing the loop, you are building it. The longer you've been doing this, and for most people it's been years, the lower the trigger threshold becomes. The brain optimizes for what it practices, even if what it practices is suffering. Which means the longer you've been overthinking, the easier overthinking becomes. That's not a judgment, that's just how the mechanism works. And here's the part that's actually useful. It also works in reverse. The same neuroplasticity that strengthened the loop can weaken it, but only if you understand what's actually driving the circuit, which is not the content of the thoughts. It's something underneath the content. The thing the brain is actually looking for with every pass. And the research found exactly what that thing is. But here's the thing the research also found. The thing that flips the entire frame. Rumination is not primarily a thinking problem. It looks like a thinking problem. It feels like a thinking problem. I can't stop thinking is how everyone describes it. But the mechanism isn't a thinking failure. It's one specific thing you can't locate, an absence where something should be. And when you finally locate it, when you can name what the thought is actually waiting for, everything changes. So here's what this actually means. Rumination is not a thinking problem. It is a resolution problem. Your brain is not broken and it is not overactive. It is functioning exactly as designed, running a search for something it hasn't found yet. You are not someone who thinks too much. You are someone whose thoughts don't get closure. That is a completely different starting point, because a thinking problem means you need to think less, and that's a fight you've been losing for years. But a resolution problem means you need to find out what closure looks like for the specific thought that keeps returning. And that's actually a question you can work with. The brain isn't asking you to stop, it's asking you to answer. What changes is this. You stop asking, why can't I stop thinking about this? That question has no useful answer. It sends you back into the loop. You start asking what the thought is actually waiting for. What would closure look like for this specific thought? What does the brain need to find in order to mark this file as done? That's not a thinking question. That's a resolution question. And the moment you start asking it, you've stepped outside the circuit. You've changed the shape of the loop. You are not an overthinker. You are an under-resolver. That's the whole thing. That's what the loop has been trying to tell you every single time it came back. Not that you're broken, not that your brain is against you, that there's something unfinished, something that never got an answer. And now you know what to ask. The thought comes back, and instead of fighting it, you ask it what it needs. That is a different game entirely. Are you an overthinker or an under-resolver? Comment down below and subscribe so you never miss an upload.